Boy, have we got a great episode coming up for you today. Archie Gips, president and partner with Mark Wahlberg and Steven Levinson in Unrealistic Ideas, joins me on the Steve Freeman Podcast.
You're listening to the Steve Freeman Podcast, the real, raw truth about the pursuit of success in music, business, and life. Here's your host, hit songwriter, multi-platinum selling producer, and serial entrepreneur, Steve Freeman.
Welcome back, everybody, and I know it's been a while since we were together. Thank you all for sticking with me through the hiatus, if you will, of the last couple of weeks. The move is complete. We have officially left Nashville, and we now live in Southern California. And like I said, I was going to try to do the podcast in the meantime, and I just couldn't get to it. And so I decided to take a couple of weeks off. But we're back. We're back, and we're now back on a new day. Wednesdays are now the new day for the podcast, every Wednesday from now on. So make sure you are subscribed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, wherever it is that you are listening to the podcast. Make sure that you are subscribed so that new episodes automatically download to your device. If you're watching the video version on the Steve Freeman Podcast YouTube channel, hello there. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Like the video if you do, leave a comment, and make sure you've got notifications on when you do subscribe to the channel so that you are notified every time we upload a new video. If you want to check out everything and anything you need to know about me, you can find at thestevefreeman.com. And as usual, follow me everywhere on social media at the Steve Freeman. Well, like I said in the opening, I'm excited about today's episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. My guest today is Archie Gips. Archie is the president and partner with Mark Wahlberg and Steven Levinson at Unrealistic Ideas. They have produced McMillions, award-winning documentary that was on HBO. We get into that. We're going to talk about that. But also the new show, Wall Street, featuring Mark Wahlberg, where they follow him around. It's on HBO Max. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you go check it out. It's on HBO Max. And basically, everybody knows Mark Wahlberg, the actor, the movie star, that whole thing. What they don't know is the entrepreneurial side. I mean, maybe you do, maybe some people do, but they don't know the specifics, the how it is building these businesses. Not everything just works out because he's a superstar, Mark Wahlberg. And that's what Wall Street shows. We're going to talk to Archie about McMillions. We're going to talk to him about Wall Street and so much more. So I hope you are settled in, whether you're in your car, you're watching on your TV, watching on your iPad, listening on your iPhone. It doesn't really matter. Buckle up. Great interview with Archie Gips right now. Well, it feels strange that I have been circling this whole camp, and I don't know what's going on, but I feel honored to do so, to be good friends with Tom Dowd and friends with Doug Ellen. And my circle has been increasingly getting bigger around Mark Wahlberg and all things Wahlbergian. And when my buddy Tom Dowd told me about what was going on with Wall Street months and months ago, it intrigued my interest. And then, of course, the show aired, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, and I binged it all in one episode, one sitting. And I got to know Archie Gips. And I wanted from that moment on to have him on the podcast. I was talking, Tom's like, you need to have Archie on because it's what we're doing over there, what those guys are doing is special. So it's my honor, my pleasure. Welcome in, Archie. Thanks so much for taking the time. Archie is the president and partner of Unrealistic Ideas. And I'll let you tell everybody. I've had several people ask me, I'm like, because I own a similar company. It's like people say, what do you do? And it's like, they don't accept the answer, a little bit of everything. And so I'll let you kind of explain what you do, your background, and leading up into building Unrealistic Ideas with Mark.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Steve. It's a long story. I'll try to make it short. I came out to Los Angeles. I had a background in improvisation and screenwriting, and came out to Los Angeles to be a screenwriter, and then sort of fell into the non-scripted space and started producing and developing a lot of non-scripted documentary films, TV shows, a lot of stuff that I'm sure a lot of your listeners are aware of or fans of. and then had the great opportunity to work on a show, Wahlburgers, which was, of course, about Mark Wahlberg and his family and the Wahlburgers restaurant, and also met Steven Levinson, who is Mark's longtime producing partner and manager. And the three of us were able to form Unrealistic Ideas after I worked with Mark for several years, and he got to know me and kind of sort of brought me into his group of trusted folks. And so Unrealistic Ideas was formed about 3 years ago, and it's a full service production company, and we specialize in non-scripted fare, such as documentary series, podcasts, and the possibility of those non-scripted real characters, real stories can also be flipped into scripted TV shows and feature films down the line.
I got you. It's so interesting too. That's what a lot of people don't understand. One of the questions I was going to ask you, and we can get to this now, is that, there used to be 2 or 3 forms of content and that's it. And it was like people were geared one way or the other. And now we seem to live in this society where you can maybe start with an idea, but maybe that idea is a feature, then maybe it's a series, maybe it's a streaming thing, then it's a podcast. And now you have to have a podcast, even for the shows and even for the docuseries and all these. So it's almost like creating one big piece of content and dissecting it down into basically how people are living and how people are consuming the various content that they're consuming across all different kinds of platforms.
100%. And I'm a big believer specifically in bringing added value to things. So if let's just say there's a movie that's coming out and it's based on a real story, well, wouldn't it be much cooler to show that real story, let people understand it's real, and then make the scripted version of that afterwards? Or potentially, if it's a huge success as a scripted film, showing the documentary version of it afterwards, if possible? Because I think there's so much stuff out there, there's so much content out there, that it's really important to stand out. The way to stand out, if it's based on a real story, is to lean into that. And to know that something really happened, I think really excites viewers. And also same with podcasts, right? Podcasts like yours and other talk show podcast formats do really well. But what we're doing is more of the narrative, non-scripted, which is telling a story. It's like the old radio days when there'd be serialized shows on radio. It's the same thing with podcasts. You're able to tell stories to people where you may not have a lot of archival footage, a lot of video, a lot of photos. So how do you tell that story? Well, you tell it as a podcast. And I think people are infatuated with real life stories and real life people because those stories are relatable to them, much more so relatable than a completely fictitious storyline. Again, this is just my opinion.
No, sure, absolutely. Which leads into a great question. And that is, when you guys are not only formulating your own ideas, but, just like you get pitched something every 35 seconds, on the ones that actually tend to resonate with you as a company with unrealistic ideas, how do you decipher, okay, this is a great docuseries idea, or this is a great, podcast series? What are the criteria that go through, okay, this one's going to get the cameras, these are going to get the microphones?
It's a great question. It all depends 100% on the archival. So one of the first things we do, let's just say, Steve, and you're right, we get pitched quite a bit. You're like, hey, Archie, I have this amazing story. I'm going to completely make this up, but it's about this basketball team out of Nebraska, and they have this amazing story, and it's really, and I'll go, awesome, Steve. Do you have footage? Do you have footage of the players? What do you have? What archival footage? If it happened from like the 1980s, do you have footage from back then? And based on all those answers and what you have, I would say to you, look, this is an incredible story. We don't have enough archival footage, and we probably don't want to do too much recreation, which is, again, something we could shoot to kind of show what happened back then, but maybe we're relying on it too much. So maybe we're better off as developing this as a podcast. We could tell this story audibly, and then in success, we could potentially flip it into a scripted TV show or series. So that's kind of how we look at it. And it really is based on access to the people and what materials they have in an archival sense, be it video, documentation, photographs, and so forth.
Gotcha. Let me ask you this. When you guys are looking at projects, how do you determine or decide? Because I know, especially a lot of behind the scenes, even though you and I've never met, it seems like I know you and I know a lot about you just from our shared people in common, but I see a lot of pictures of you with a camera in your hand. So as the president of this company, you and I have similar taste with the Aries and the Alexa Minis, and we've got nice tasting cameras. But when do you get an idea or you have something pitched to you? Do you go, okay, this is something we're interested in producing ourselves, and I want my hand on the camera, like you did much with, I'm assuming, with Wall Street, was you with the camera? And is it something that you guys want things coming to you in the can that you want to put out under the Unrealistic Ideas Productions banner? Or is this, no, we're really looking for things that we want to independently produce in-house, whether it be for creative control reasons, quality control?
Right.
What's your preference?
Well, there's a lot of questions you had in there, so I'll try to knock them all off. First of all, I do have the camera in my hand quite a bit. Specifically, though, for Wall Street, we had an amazing showrunner. Her name was Sarah Sabitsky, so she shot a ton, and we have an amazing producer, Mike Freeze, who's also a personal friend of Mark. So it's very easy for Mike to shoot a lot of stuff with Mark and myself because he has trust in us. He knows that we're going to film the things properly. He could bring us into like very private moments and so forth. So specifically with Wall Street, there was a lot of that. In regards to the projects that we'll take on, we definitely are not a labeling factory. We're not like, if people reach out to us and they say, and they have, where they're like, hey, we have this completed documentary film. We'd love for you and Mark and Lev to be producers on this and like kind of go out with it. We'll say, well, we'll watch it. And if we love it and we have no notes, we'll do it, which rarely happens. But if we love it and think there's potential to change it and make, if you allow us creative control, because we feel that we're very confident between the three of us and we kind of know what the public is looking for, we could be very additive in making changes to the creative to help the potential to sell it. And so if you have folks that are interested in that, proposition, then we would engage with them in co-producing a project like that. And sometimes we just internally develop stuff. I will get phone calls from Mark and Lev on a daily, definitely weekly, but if not a daily basis, where they'll be like, hey, let's do this project. Or, did you read this? I saw this online. Can we do something with this? So we're constantly looking and developing things internally, but we're also open to co-producing stuff with producers and individuals that come to us with projects.
No, that's great. I mean, this day and age, you almost have to be that way. I know a lot of people, it's like, no, it's my thing. And they almost stranglehold it, and it's like, but you just, with the way things are right now, with so many different outlets now, everybody's clamoring for good content. And when you've got eyeballs like yours and Lev's and Mark, I mean, it would be very tempting to me to go, nope, we're going to do all this ourselves because we know, like you just said, we know what we're capable of. And if we have creative control over something, so having the willingness to be open and look for those things. I mean, I think that's a great thing as well. Talk to me about Millions.
Quick. We're always looking though look, I can only speak for myself, right? I know what I like. I know what I gravitate towards, and that's what we like to produce. But I look forward to working with individuals, talented producers and directors that have different takes on things and challenge me in the way that I'm thinking. And we put together materials like that too. I definitely don't know everything, right? I only know what I like and I enjoy, and I try to anticipate what an audience will enjoy. And whenever we look at projects, I always try to take it from the point of view of, I'm just an audience member. I don't really know the information that well. Even if I've been working on a project for 2 years, every time I watch a cut, I'll pretend like, okay, wipe the memory clean. Okay, I'm watching it with fresh eyes. And again, it's not so easy to do that, but I'm always trying to look at it and trying to figure out what is the question that an audience is going to ask at this time? How do we make this accessible to people? And when you work with really smart directors, and again, this is segue to McMillions, that came to us because one of my very good friends, Brian Lazarte, he worked with me on several projects as an editor, and I knew that he was an immensely talented guy. He partnered up with a friend of his, James Lee Hernandez, and the two of those guys came to Unrealistic and said, "Hey, we have this project called McMillions, and we think that it would be great to partner up with you guys." And they gave us, basically they had put together a little bit of a sizzle, and I was blown away by the materials. We definitely had notes. We definitely had comments. We're like, this is what it is now. We can make it so much bigger and better. And those guys are really smart, and they took sort of the notes that we had and built it out, and we worked together and collaborated with them. And that's where kind of how McMillions came to be. James actually found, he was on Reddit, and it was like, today I learned that fact that no one had ever won the Monopoly game at McDonald's. And he was like, what's that all about? So he put in a FOIA request, which is a Freedom of Information Act request, to the FBI. He wanted to get more information about it. Well, 3 years later, they finally got back to him. And that's when those two guys started digging into that. And then they came to us to help sort of flesh it out and have a production company that could help navigate the waters of getting it sold and also helping develop it. And so that's how that came about.
It was captivating. What I mean, and to me, it was like you hit on something earlier, and that's what really sparked in my mind was, yes, you guys seem to be focusing on and creating the types of content that people want to see. And that is what there is not a single person that I know of in the United States anyway that is unfamiliar with the Monopoly game at McDonald's and didn't look forward to it and play it and collect the pieces. And even though your better judgment tells you have absolutely no chance of winning, to sit down and watch and figure out, you know what? They posed a question early. You posed a question early, and it's like, who won? And it's like, wait a minute. We don't ever remember hearing who exactly won. And I sat there and watched it, and I thought, man, if this is the kind of content that you guys are going to make, it's literally amazing. Now, did you guys have, and of course, winning all kinds of awards and everything to go along with it, which is much deserved. Did you guys plan for Wall Street to follow McMillions up, or was Wall Street maybe initially supposed to be a first thing that Unrealistic was going to come out with? Because my question is, how do you follow both of these up? What's next?
Well, McMillions was the first project we ever sold. So that was sold out the gate. Not out the gate. It took a lot of hard work, but we were able to sell that. And then Wall Street, how Wall Street came about, because, of course, Mark knew me very well from working on Wahlburgers with him. And so when we first started Unrealistic Ideas, he's like, Archie, we're definitely making the next Wahlburgers, but it's not going to be Wahlburgers 2.0. I want something completely different. I want something completely fresh. And the name of the show is going to be Wall Street. So he literally told me that. It was done. So we knew for like 2 years that we wanted to do that show. And it really was more about the timing being right. And it just so completely randomly, we started filming that show in December of 2019. And because Mark had he had Municipal, which is new fashion line that was coming out, his clothing line. And we knew that would be really interesting to document that, coming literally from creation into being brought out into the world and going online and starting to having his clothing released. We thought that would make a really interesting timeline from the startup of that all the way to the release online of Municipal, is what was going to be the underlying theme of Wall Street. And then the pandemic hit and everything went sideways. And so we were able to capture a lot of amazing stuff. And again, to Mark's credit, I can't say enough about how willing Mark was to be open and saying, look, Arch, we want to show it all. Like, it takes a lot to get these things going. And again, going back to what you said, Steve, the relatability thing of McMillions was people know that McDonald's Monopoly game. They played it. They remember it. We wanted that same thing to touch audiences. Like, what goes into creating a business or being an entrepreneur? So many people either have been an entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur. And the thought that Mark Wahlberg, whatever he touches, turns to gold, is just not true. he has to put a lot of work into that, a hell of a lot of work. And we really wanted to show, like, this is what happens. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of obstacles. It isn't like, okay, Mark's on board, we just made $1 billion. It does not work like that. There's a lot of failure along the way that ultimately results in success because Mark is such a hardworking guy, and the people he surrounds himself with are such hardworking guys that inevitably there's going to be success, but there's a lot of obstacles along the way.
Well, two things. One of the things you said, with the pandemic happening, right as you guys were getting started. Luckily, because Mark surrounds himself with very trusted individuals such as yourself, otherwise you guys wouldn't have been able to shoot. I mean, you may have been able to start shooting now, but only because, you guys were so close in such a close-knit group that you even were able to continue shooting whenever COVID hit because nobody was letting anybody around them. So, him having that close knit, people complain all the time about Hollywood. And I mean, I come from the music business and we're the same exact way. We have little circles. And if you get in that artist camp, in that artist circle, you're good to go for the next, 10 years. You write the songs, you produce the music, you make the money. It's all great. I'm finding the music, the movie business and TV and film to be about the exact same way. And, but people can see that as a negative, but then on the positive side of it, if we didn't have those things, the pandemic would have, number one, Wall Street would not have happened so far, and we see a lot of things like that. So, I mean, I think it's great.
Well, Steve, life is that way. Like, I have 2 young kids. Obviously, you see them in Wall Street, right? I have certain friends, the people you allow in your life, and then you're going to have, their friends, and you have that collective group. Okay, this is my trusted circle of people that I'm going to have around my kids and friends. I'm sure you've got plenty of friends, and as do I, that I'm like, you're not going anywhere near my kids, So that's just life. Like, life is, you have people you trust to be in business with, you have people you trust to be socialized with, this and that. The music industry, and I don't care what it is, it's business in general. You're going to have different relationships with different people. And especially when it comes to celebrities and athletes and musicians, the trust level, like a lot of those guys and gals get burned. So they want to surround themselves by people that they could trust. And that's really the thing that I pride myself most on, is that my relationship with Mark was built on me being brought into his circle, but then just being who I am, he trusted me. And he literally gave me the ability to start a company with him. And that is not lost on me. I mean, Mark Wahlberg is a titan in the entertainment industry. And for him to say, Archie Gips, I'm going to allow you to, be a partner with me in TV and film. It's not scripted, it's non-scripted, but it's still a tremendous honor. And I really, every day when I wake up, that's on my mind. Like, I want to do right by that. I bust my butt to make it special. And so the fact that, we have 3 shows that we have 4 shows that have been produced and on the air. 3 of them have been nominated for very acclaimed awards. Wall Street just got nominated as a Critics' Choice Award, just got announced yesterday for Best Business Show. So we hopefully will have some more awards, for Wall Street as well. So I'm extremely proud that we're putting out really quality material that audiences can connect with. And again, it goes back to, like you said, the people you trust. And Mike Freeze, I mentioned him, he's a producer on Wall Street. He's a trusted friend of Mike's. And so, yeah, there was a scene, I wish, for timing reasons, it was taken out of the show, but I wish we would have been able to share with the public. We had meetings at Unrealistic Ideas that we filmed. It was all on Zoom. So no one would, because it was right after the pandemic hit. And we're like, how in the world are we going to continue to do Wall Street? Like, we didn't know. And we had to come up with a plan. We had to wait for HBO Max to have a protocol, right? We wanted everyone to be safe and everything to be done right. So it took several days, several weeks before we had a very safe way that we knew that we could start capturing material. And one of that was having Mike, who was already in Mark's bubble, going over and shooting stuff simply on an iPhone and just making sure that we had the right equipment to make it sound a little bit better than, normal shooting on an iPhone. So that's kind of how we did it. And thankfully, Mark was open to that. And if you notice, if you watch Wall Street, It's shot beautiful. The first 3 episodes look fantastic, and then all of a sudden the pandemic hits, and now it's on Zooms and iPhones, and hopefully the story is so, gripping and interesting, and it just flies by that you don't notice that stuff. You're already invested in sort of Mark and the stories that you're hearing, that you think less about how it looks.
No, and I will tell you, to that point, the scope and the range of the people that I've talked to. I had the last time I had Tom on was to promote Wall Street, and I believe I had him on. We recorded the interview a month before the show aired, and so I was hitting it on social media and promoting it, and I started promoting it just as about the time HBO Max and everybody else started really filtering stuff out there about the release date and everything. And so I was hearing from a lot of different people pre the show coming out. I've heard from a lot of people post the show coming out. People going and researching and finding my interview with Tom about it and everything. But talking about not noticing that quality difference, if you will. Number one, I didn't notice it, and I'm a quality junkie. I'm a camera nut. I own so much that a private individual should not own, but it's my passion. It's what I love. I'm a professional songwriter and music producer that's a cinematographer at heart. So I didn't notice it because the story had sucked me in so much. Nobody else that I know that I've talked to noticed it either, except from a point of view that it made it more endearing. They felt like exactly what you said. These people at the highest level of this thing up here went through this the exact same way that we all did. And the way that it has resonated with people has blown my mind. I've talked to people that I know here in Orange County that were just starting a business, that when they watched Wall Street, they were like, man, that's exactly what happened to us. And the fact that it's reaching the gamut of people. I just had an interview earlier this morning with Brad Thor, and I was talking to him, and he's talking about guests coming up. He goes, I just watched Wall Street, and I'm blown away. I'm blown away by the entire thing. And so it's so funny, the range and the gambit of people that this has really touched from a realistic and human perspective. And I don't think anybody noticed when the iPhone footage came in and when it became Zoom calls, because I think people were like, it's real. And one of the things I found, and I'm sure I'm not the first one to tell you this either, but one of the things that blew me away, and I don't know how you did this, and maybe someday I'll have to take you for dinner or something. You can spill me tell me the secret sauce. It did not feel like reality. It didn't feel like a reality show. It did not feel like all of the other productions that have been done in this manner that appear on Discovery or that appear on any other network. It felt, yes, like a docuseries, but it didn't even feel like that. It felt like you hit record on somebody's life, and just at the end of the last episode, you had to hit pause because you ran out of time, and we'll be back for more. And that to me is what was captivating. It didn't feel episodic. It felt like real time. And that was amazing to me. And I don't know if that was how you guys conceptualized to be able to do it, because it didn't feel like watching a quote unquote business reality show.
Well, again, thank you for that. It's a tremendous compliment. I really appreciate that. It comes down to just the authenticity. Mark is being real and genuine, and the people that are there, and myself included, because when we set out to do the show, I was not necessarily going to be on camera. I was going to be behind the scenes helping with the show. But, one of the producers on the show was like, Archie, like the scenes that you are with Mark, like you just could tell the relationship you guys have. Like you have to be a character. Sorry, my little kids just are running into the room here. I apologize. They're on the show too in Wall Street. So this is my son, Wally. Okay, there he is. Okay. Hi, sorry, guys. Hopefully you can. This happens exactly in Wall Street, so this is perfect. Perfect. And to speak to this, when you said it's relatable to people, I have so many people that have said how inspiring what Mark does is to them, and it's so palpable, and it's amazing to see on social media, and it's amazing to see in just the press and everything. But what blew me away is because I got forced into being on the show, and on cue, of course, my kids running in, like I got so many people that DM me or wrote me emails that were like, Archie, we really were touched by you as a dad working from home during the pandemic. And it spoke to me. Like, I never in a million years thought that I was even something, that was not even on my radar. It was about Mark and his life. So people were really watching the show, and certain characters really were relatable to certain people. Like a lot of dads reaching out to me, like blew me away. So I just, again, it was a surreal experience for me personally, and I'm extremely proud and honored that we got the show out there, and that Mark's how he lives his life can be so inspiring to so many people, and myself included. I'm incredibly inspired by Mark on a daily basis, and I know him. And so I to your point, I think what you're seeing is, it doesn't feel like reality, because it feels like it's someone just hitting record on their iPhone and you're just seeing what's happening.
Oh, totally. And I think a big piece of this too, Tom and I had a really in-depth conversation about this, and it's like, okay, really the last thing in the world that anybody or the world needs right now is another A-list celebrity being followed around by a camera. And I was anxious to see how that was going to work. But what I think makes Wall Street work so well is it's not about the success. It's about the struggle. And that is something that 100% of people can identify with. Very few people, less than 1%. Unfortunately, it's just the way that it is real life, will ever achieve the level of success that Mark Wahlberg has achieved. And most of the people around him. I think you're included in that. You're in the 1 percentile of people that breathe that rare air up there. And
I'm not in that, but I appreciate it.
You are. I appreciate you saying that you don't, but you are. You're. Well, let me put it this way: you're in the vicinity of breathing the 1% air. So, and that's a good place to be. But 100% of people identify with the struggle, and when they look up on that screen and they see somebody that they look up and go, "These people never have any worries. Everything is always fine," and then you're told, "No, not really. Their life is eerily like mine. Their house may be a little bit bigger. They may travel to exotic locations to do their job, but they struggle every day. They have issues with their kids every day. They miss their families. They miss their kids. They fail. They lose money." And I think
not only it's where he came from.
Oh,
Steve,
totally.
That's where that's the thing. He is a self-made man in every sense of the word. The opening of the show, the graphic sequence, right? There's Wall Street, and then there's a can of spray paint that sprays Wall Street over it, right? That is the show, because it's not about Wall Street and the people that are making the money. This is Mark Wahlberg, who literally, he has street smarts. He came from extremely modest means and was able to hustle and build his own career to an extent where he is now today. And that is, when I say hustle, it's definitely not in a pejorative sense. Like, he busted his ass to get everything, and being the hardest working guy. And he says it in the show, and he says it in life. It's like, you got to put in the work, and good things will happen if you continue to work hard and believe in yourself. And that's the way that you got to look at life. And I think it's important. The show in general, I think, is really important to people. For me, having unrealistic ideas, like working for myself, I'm part of this company, and the people that work for us, we wanted them to feel like we're part of a team here. And I think that people that work in, like, for corporate America, and are, they feel like they're checking in from 9 to 5, it could be really, it could get you down. And so to know that, hey, maybe I should just go after my dreams, and I should just believe in myself and go for it. That's really the message of this show. Like, Mark wants to encourage people to do that, and they could be tremendous successes too if they believe in themselves and they put in the hard work. They can make their own entrepreneurial, ventures happen.
No, and that's great. You're exactly right. And one of the things I noticed about the show that I found was very interesting about the way he is with you with the guys at Municipal and Performance Inspired, everybody else. It's like, I like the way that and I'm sure it's a conscious thing, but he goes, all right, I'll use my platform to put you guys up here on the platform. Then it's up to you. I'm not going to show up and I'm Mark Wahlberg and fix everything. And it's like, no, I believe in you, and I'm going to give you the vehicle in which to do what it is that you want to do. But you are very much going to sink or swim based on the
100%.
quality and the work of what you're doing. It's not going to succeed because I'm involved.
That's exactly right. And again, Mark is very shrewd, and he partners with people that he trusts and that he has loyalty with. There's a sense of loyalty to, because those are the people that are going to work the hardest. And he has his friendships from the kids that he grew up with. They're still around him and his entourage, and they're still his dear friends that he keeps. They're all together, and he keeps those guys employed too. So there's a real sense of Mark giving people opportunities. But again, like you said, you have to run with it. And I even say this in the show. I don't want to quote myself. How lame is that? But
come on,
it's true. It's like, no, it's like Mark gave me the keys to the Corvette, and now it's up to me to drive it. He's not driving the car for me. He's like, Archie, here you go. I'm going to open up doors for you, and we're going to have potential ways and strategies to get things sold. But ultimately, it's going to be my hard work and the company's people working that I hire and we hire to stay on top of those people to sell shows, and more importantly, selling shows, putting out content that elevates Mark's brand, right? We don't want to just put out anything that's schlocky and, this is like devalues everything hard that Mark's worked for. We're trying to really get a temperature of what viewers want to watch, and that's what we continue to strive to do. We have a lot of projects that we're working on. Not everything is going to be is a home run in anything. Like, that's the struggle. It's the struggle of Wall Street. But the idea is to collect as many home runs as you can in the season. There's going to be a lot of strikeouts, but you get 20 or 30 home runs a season. It's a pretty good season.
No, that's exactly right. That's one of the things I wanted to ask you about was is there anything that you're working on that you can talk about now? And a question I've gotten 3,000 times on Instagram: will there be a season 2 of Wall Street?
Well, HBO Max will have to figure that out pretty soon. Nothing that I can talk about that's official, but we are hopeful that there will be a season 2 of Wall Street. So that's, again, optimistic about that. And there's lots of stories to cover if there is a season 2. Trust me. Mark's turning 50 this year. He's turning 50 in a couple of days. So it's going to be a real inflection point for him, how he starts viewing things as a father and a businessman. Once that magical age of 50, you kind of reprioritize things. So how will Mark deal with that and so forth is really interesting. But we have a lot of amazing projects that we're super excited about. Unfortunately, I can't sort of get into the specifics.
Totally. I get it.
But I can say we're doing a couple of shows with some major professional athletes that are really cool, big time, like the best football player in the NFL, in my opinion. We're doing a project with him that's super cool. One of the best basketball players in the NBA. We're doing a project. And again, it's not about their basketball or football lives. It's stuff outside the game. A lot of cool stuff with some musicians. We have a really awesome treasure hunt show, which is going to kind of blow people's minds, which is like, it's certainly not Curse of Oak Island. It's got a lot of archival material. So this is a real sort of treasure hunt that happened 30 years ago and even back into the 40s that is being revisited. Really super cool stuff. Again, the beautiful thing about Unrealistic Ideas is, number one, we really just create shows that we think are cool, that people will like. We don't have certain mandates. It's not like, we have to do this show and this show. It's like, no, we think it's cool. Let's do it. And the other thing is, our company is called Unrealistic Ideas. So we can basically do any show. And if someone's like, well, what does that have to do with Mark Wahlberg? We're like, well, it's unrealistic. I don't know what to tell you. So we kind of do what we feel is the right thing to do.
Do you have I'm sure you do. I know I do. So I know you do a list of passion projects that I've got one dot and this is at the top. Then I've got number 2 that it's like, you feel like now you're at a place to where you're going to be able to do some of the things that you've been passionate about. As a filmmaker, as a producer, as a director and writer, that this gives you the venue to do that. Because one of the things I've noticed, especially watching Wall Street again, is that this is not about fame and success. To me, the overarching theme was legacy. And it seems to be the steps that are being taken are to leave a legacy. And now it's like you're in this position to where this is going to be the vehicle for you to leave your legacy as well. So are there some projects on your to-do list that you're passionate about that you want to be able to get to do through Unrealistic?
100%, Steve. And not only that, Mark has the non-scripted projects that are his passion projects, and so does Lev, and all 3 of us have those. Mine definitely have, circled in bold on a dry erase board, that I look at every day and I plan, in the next year or 2, definitely want to see those things moving forward. But the interesting thing about Wall Street is, you look at all of Mark's businesses. You got F45, the gyms. You got Performance Inspired, my good friend Tom Dowd, of course, your buddy. We got Wahlburgers and Municipal and Aqua Hydrate and Mark Wahlberg Chevrolet. Those are all companies that interact with the public, right? For the most part, Unrealistic Ideas, we don't interact with the public. We interact with, buyers and streamers and networks. So we're really the only company of Mark's that, you can't, like, if someone watches Wall Street and they love the show, oh my gosh, that shirt is cool, Municipal. I'm going to go online. I'm going to buy a Municipal shirt. Well, guess what? Municipal is making a lot of money because there's a TV show that has Municipal in it. It's very different for our company, and every project is different. So, the way that I look at Unrealistic Ideas, and I'm sure Mark does, is it was never intended to give the world a view into how Unrealistic Ideas works. It's more about a view into Mark Wahlberg's life in TV and film and what he does and the project that he's involved in it. And it just, like in Wall Street, when he called me up one day and he's like, hey, what do you think of an Oscar De La Hoya doc? And I'm like, that would be awesome. I'm not even a huge boxing fan, but I'm like, I know Oscar De La Hoya, and I know that both men and women would be interested in watching that doc. Next thing I know, Mark's like, let's get a Zoom going, and that's some of that's captured in Wall Street. And now we are doing, that is official. We are doing the Oscar De La Hoya doc, and we're super excited about that. And so again, it's all Mark, and a lot of it is, Lev's connections. And of course, I'm doing a lot of development, a lot of work on my own, but we are just kind of creating projects that we think will speak to the general public and people will be invested in.
No, that's great. I love hearing. I cannot wait to see what you guys do in the future, and because I know that's the amazing thing is I guess I'm in the business, so I guess I kind of come to expect it, or I know, but you just look from top to bottom, and it's quality. And I think if anything, people even that didn't know that you guys were behind McMillions, that saw Wall Street, are now saying, okay, Wall Street, it's just such an awesome show, very well produced, very well done. Oh, okay. And they did, McMillions was great, and it was quality. And it just seems like top to bottom, again, which is the way Mark seems to do everything. Yeah. It's just,
well, there's one show you should check. It was so short-lived, Quibi, I'm sure you've heard of it, right?
Oh,
which
yeah.
was, that came and went, unfortunately. But we had a show for Quibi that was called Run the City. It was about the mayor of Fall River, Massachusetts. And that's right up there. I'm as proud of that one as I am with Wall Street and McMillions. That was nominated for an IDA award, which is the Documentary Filmmaker Award, which is the most prestigious documentary award you could potentially get. So just think of that. So every project that we I'm a creative, Mark's a creative, Lev's a creative. So we really are honed in on making sure that these things are fabulous. And again, we're going to sort of venture into doing some more traditional reality TV shows too, competition series and things like that. It definitely won't be your run-of-the-mill stuff, though. I promise you that. It'll be very different, much more cinematic. And that's kind of what
Right.
Mark's brand is, right? It's that cinematic, look beautiful, feel amazing. And so that's what we really not only promise, but that's what we bring to the table.
No, that's awesome. And look, man, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I appreciate what you've given me today and hearing everything. And like I said, I'm looking forward to what you guys have coming and what you're going to do in the future. I'm excited to hear about the things that you can't talk about right now. So again, I appreciate you being here. Archie is the president and partner of Unrealistic Ideas, and you guys know them for McMillions and Behind Wall Street and so much more to come. You can follow Archie on Instagram at Archie Gips. You can visit them online at unrealisticideas.com and follow along. It's going to be an exciting ride. I love to see when people step outside of in our world, step outside the studio system. I always champion an independent, and I love what you guys are doing and going, look, we're going to go out here and use the leverage that we have to make the content that we want to make the way that we want to make it. And that always is to the benefit of the consumer and the viewer, always. And so I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. And Archie, I appreciate you being here and spending some time with us today.
Thank you, Steve. And we'll have to get you DPing some of our stuff then. I didn't realize you're such an avid shooter, so we'll got to get you into the mix here.
Oh, I am. I don't know that I'm that level. I like to look like I am, though. I look really good with a camera in my hand. But yeah, it's these days I'm more kind of doing what you're doing a little bit in developing some things and getting some things off the ground. But I wanted to start my company out here exactly the way that you've talked about it. And that is, okay, I didn't want to have to go rent cameras. So we bought Red cameras. We bought Sony FX9s. We bought the Ariel X. And it's like, so at any given moment, we have an idea. I don't want to sit around and talk about it and have the bureaucracy. Let's go shoot it. If it's within our realm and ability to do it, then let's go do it. In a world that we live in right now, which is hard to believe, we live in a world where people are making amazing creative content on YouTube. And it's because technology,
100%.
Technology has gotten to the point now where, especially, I'm a huge Sony fan, but Sony just brought out the FX3, and it's like it's a part of their cinema line, but it matches perfectly with my FX9. So now I've got, we can make cinematic content. If you're a great storyteller and you've got skills, the equipment and the technology is there for you to have. And it's making things so possible to create great content. And that's what I'm a content lover. So I'm a creator, but I'm a content lover.
That's the key. And Steve, though, I come from, back when I was a writer for many, many years. So to me, it's, content is king, and it comes down to story and character. And I'll have this conversation all the time with my DPs. We're having a beautiful, elaborate, interview setup. And in the background, there'll be like, oh, there's a little light shining on this lamp or like a flower vase in the background. And the DP is like, futzing with it. And I'm like, if someone notices the shine on that, we're lost. Like, if they're not fully invested in what the person's saying that's being interviewed, you could forget it, So it always comes down to story and character. And then, the beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? So
that's very true. Very true. And I think that right there is a great place to end it. And again, Archie, I appreciate you being here. Can't wait to see what you guys do.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
I hope you guys enjoyed that interview as much as I did, and getting to know Archie personally even better. What a great guy. I love it when people get to fulfill their purpose and they get to do the things that they want to do with their life. And what a great story Archie has. He was a success anyway. But now, when good people meet up with other good people and like-minded people, and you're able to do the things that you really want to do, amazing things are possible. And that's what they are doing, both Archie and Mark and Lev. over at Unrealistic Ideas. They've got more shows coming out, and there are some announcements that we will be able to tell you about that we weren't able to talk about in the podcast coming up very soon. And Archie said as soon as they have the green light where they can actually make it public, then he will allow me to talk about it on the podcast. But some exciting news is coming up from Archie and Mark Wahlberg and Steven Levinson and the whole crew over at Unrealistic Ideas. Guys, thank you for being here. Don't forget, rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Leave us that written review. I'm going to start featuring them on Instagram. So if you want to leave a review, make sure that you do so. Leave me your Instagram handle, and I will make sure that I tag you in those posts. Follow me everywhere on social media at The Steve Freeman. Don't forget, if you're watching the video version on the podcast channel on YouTube, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, that you hit the bell icon to make sure you're notified, and then click all notifications so that you're notified every time we upload a new video. Also, reminder, if you're not subscribed to my main YouTube channel, now would be the time. It's youtube.com/The Steve Freeman notes, and links and all that stuff is in the description down below and in the podcast show notes. Make sure new content coming next week, and we're going to start putting out new content a minimum of 1 time per week over on the main YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed there as well. Guys, until the next episode next Wednesday, don't forget, new day. Wednesdays are now the day for the Steve Freeman Podcast. Until next Wednesday, guys, dream big, work harder.